This video is going to cover the second part of the Drawing Revisited project and go through how to maybe add color or other value. So this is the original drawing that I worked from. If you watch the last video, you'll see sort of the process of picking it. And the last video I ended with this state of the drawing. So I'd use charcoal and ink. Now I'm going to be adding in more value with charcoal and mostly using oil pastel to add color. You can thin oil pastel or oil sticks with odorless mineral spirits like the Scamsol. And that's what I'm going to be doing in the majority of the video. At the very end, I will add a little bit of acrylic just because I wanted to add a bit more opacity. The oil pastels or oil sticks tend to be a bit more transparent when you thin them out like that. Keep in mind this isn't prescriptive. I'm just doing one way of treating this project. You could certainly keep it neutrals, black, white, gray. You certainly do not need to add color. It's just an option. You can work mixed media, but you can just stick with one material too. The point or goal of this assignment is to use your original drawing as a jumping off point to make a new drawing in whatever way you choose to do that. So things that I've changed in this drawing. One, this is much larger than the original. The original is about, I think it's 11 by 11 inches and just ink. The new version is about 2 feet by 2 feet, and I've used ink, charcoal, and then now I'm adding oil pastel. The larger stick you'll see is an oil stick. It's a Sennelier oil stick. And then I'm also using some Van Gogh oil pastels and then some unidentified oil pastels. But really any type of oil pastel you use, you will be able to thin it out or make a wash with odorless mineral spirits, should you be interested in that approach. Odorless mineral spirits are a safer material to use than something like turpentine, which has a lot of kind of volatile aerosols that you don't want to be necessarily inhaling. Odorless mineral spirits you should still probably use with some type of ventilation. And, it's always good to use safe studio habits. Again, you could use some other material. You could leave the oil stick or oil pastel as it is for texture. I just like washing it because it gives me more options. So here I'm going in and thinning with the wash. And I like it because I can leave some of it more of a mark, like a drawing mark, and some of it I can thin out to a flatter, more transparent wash. So what you'll notice is it just sort of suspends the pigment particles and moves them around, and that's because it is essentially cutting that oil and thinning it. I'm going into the negative space and building up the shadow back there to help push a sense of depth. I've also, each time, you don't see it on camera, but I'm cleaning my brush and wiping it so that I get some of the oil stick off of it, some of the pigment off of it, so I'm not completely mixing it together. Now I did use a lot of charcoal to develop the drawing, and you can wash charcoal with odorless mineral spirits or even water. So that would also be a possibility if you wanted to create this type of texture, but it is not necessary. So this drawing is very open, and for some of you that are more interested in just using graphite or a single material, that's fine too. The goal of the assignment is to create some type of continuation of your project. It could even be a different drawing than your original, where you're continuing it almost like a theme, or you're creating a larger version, you're using different media to reinterpret the drawing, or you're taking a portion of the drawing and then adding it into a new drawing. So here I'm going back in and drawing over some of the portions that have been washed. I did add a lot of harder ink lines or more definite ink lines last time, and so some of those are still showing. And I'm allowing them to stay there. They won't dissolve like the charcoal marks do. Using charcoal the way that I did will tend to create almost like I don't want to call it grungy, but like almost like a weathered or patina-like quality to the washes. So it mixes in and makes them a little bit duller or dingier. which I like for this because it's allowing me to get some more neutral and dull colors right away. The oil pastels that I have are very bright, so by layering them over an ink wash or charcoal, it's creating areas that are duller and less intense in color. And then when I'm using the oil pastel over areas of white paper, it's more intense and bright. So it's helping create a depth cue for me. And one thing you'll notice too is I'm essentially just making these colors up. This is not realistic. You can certainly be more realistic in your drawing. You can be more abstracted in your drawing. I've kind of, I guess, gone a middle road where I'm using very unrealistic colors to the actual source. Now I'm adding a little bit of acrylic opaque layers over. I wanted to add a little bit more green into my negative space and add a bit of opacity. Oil pastels tend to be, like I said, transparent, almost like watercolor when you wash them, whereas acrylic usually depends on the pigment, but a lot of acrylic is more opaque. And opacity allows you to sort of layer over things. The nice thing too about using acrylic with drawing is you can draw over the acrylic layers once they're dry. I've found that if they're too thick and the plastic is too sort of shiny, so to speak, it's a little harder to draw over them with charcoal or pencil or anything like that. But if it's thinned out a bit, you'll still have enough tooth. And then lastly, I'm going in and tweaking some shadows. I'm going to build out a bit of the vine or kind of whatever was growing over the window in the building that's yellow on the right, and put in a bit more shadow behind the leaves, kind of indicate the leaf shapes too with a bit of acrylic. It's going to give a little more clarity to a few areas. I'm going in and adding some lights and color into the tree trunk so they're not just sort of the flat black of the ink. And do keep in mind the direction you develop this in your drawing is completely up to you. This is sort of our, I guess you could say, icebreaker assignment where we really get to see what your style is and what you've been working on in the past, and then how you maybe want to grow that style or those approaches or experiment in your current work. So feel free to try things that are a little uncomfortable. I'll be honest, I've never really done an oil stick wash drawing. I mean, I've done it a little bit for fun, but this was truly just like experimental for me too. And I'm adding a little more shadow, and then I'm going to go in with some charcoal after this and define a few more leaves and branches and things. So again, you can draw over dried color when your oil pastels dry a little bit. You can go in, and now I'm adding a little bit of light back in where I felt like it got too dark. And then I'm taking my oil stick and going over that when it's dry. And I'm going to leave those. I'm not even going to wash them. And that's it. So for this week, you want to do 3 gesture warm-ups just like last week and upload them to the assignment folder. Those are just to kind of get your feet wet and warm up. You're going to want to finish your drawing revisited project and upload that to its assignment folder. And then finally, you will want to, I would ideally upload maybe an early image of your drawing revisited project and then, the completed version. And I think I'll put the prompts in the discussion, but I think for our purposes, it's helpful if you have questions for fellow students to put those in the discussion so people can actually have, substantive, helpful things to say about your drawing that treat whatever you're interested in. I hope you have a good week. If you need any clarification, you have questions, you can reach me at laura.andrews@minneapolis.edu or laura.andrews@riverland.edu, and have a great week.